Let's have a chat to the member for Dawson, the man who is always making headline news, and I'm pleased we get a chance to have a chat to him, the Nationals MP, George Christensen, who joins us now from our Canberra studio. Mr Christensen, good evening, mate. How you been?
Good night, Paul. Yeah, very good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, very good. Fighting fit. And I've got to say, this is an incredible situation here where everyone's trying to second-guess what you're doing here. I'm just going to ask you straight up here. Between now and the next election, will you leave the National Party at all?
Oh, look, it's not my intention to leave the National Party, Paul, not my intention to leave the government. You know, I'm here, I'm a member of the National Party, I'm a member of the government, but you know, I want to be a member of the government and a member of the party to actually try and change things from the inside. I suppose at the point where you realise that might be a forlorn hope, if it is, and I'm not saying it is, then you decide to do something different.
And can I just be very clear about this, is that if there was this incredible matter of principle, if something happened in the next little while, it's about becoming an independent is the last resort. It's not about going to One Nation or Australian Conservatives, because I've got to love the number of people who are trying to work out where you're going. If you were going anywhere and you have no intentions to go anywhere, would it simply be under your own banner or somebody else's?
Well, look, I can't say anything clearer that I'm a member of the National Party, and I hope here is where I'm going to stay. I mean, if there's something that came out of left field that completely upturned the National Party values to a point where I couldn't sit with them, well, firstly, that would be bizarre. Barnaby Joyce must have got hit by a bus because we align on many issues. So it's completely hypothetical. I don't think it'll happen.
OK, now, let's get to your decision to resign as whip today. Now, in part, this was about party discipline and the concept that how can you be, you know, the sheriff in charge of party discipline and be the guy who's out there speaking often off the song sheet. What's an example of something that now you can talk about that you couldn't last night? Because you were pretty open with Andrew Bolt last night and you were still the whip.
Yeah, although I had made the decision and I had resigned to my colleagues, so I feel a little bit freer to be able to say stuff, and that scares some people actually. But look, you know, it's well publicised now. I sat down and wrote a very angry letter earlier in the month about this issue that's up in North Queensland with the sugar industry. We have a multinational foreign company, Wilmar, lording it over cane farmers, and they wanted some action. And it was after the news of that letter broke that I contacted Barnaby and I said, look, it's probably untenable that I stay in this position. People are going to start getting cranky about this, and they're going to start putting it back onto you. I've got to say that he didn't want me to resign. He actually said he'd back me in if I wanted to stay. But it became clear over the last 2 weeks that it was time to go, and you know, it does free me up to do a lot more in the electorate and speak out on other issues, and even if the issue arises to cross the floor. And look, Paul, this is probably going to get a little bit esoteric in what I'm about to say here, but you know, the concept of party discipline and this sort of mantra of unity, 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 discipline, 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 it's almost like some dodgy science fiction movie where we're on a planet where there's this worldwide dictatorship. I mean, I think that people, and this is why we've got the rise of One Nation and other groups, people are sick of robot politicians. They send representatives to Canberra to be exactly that, representatives, to represent them. How can we represent them when the mantra is party first, unity, discipline, don't do anything to upset the apple cart? I mean, sometimes our electors want us to upset the apple cart. They want us to be taking stances different to the ones put forward by executive government. They want us to be even putting up our own private members' bills, things like that. I think that really democracy has done a disservice in Australia with this rigid fixation on party discipline. You don't see it in any other Western democracy, actually. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you've hit the nail on the head about one of the biggest factors that is driving, you know, the outsider movement, whatever you want to call it at the moment. It is representative democracy, and if you're not representing the interests of the 100,000 people who voted for you, well, as you say, what's the point? You might as well just put, you know, a robot in there that's just going to vote whichever way the party demands. But I want to ask you about the sugar stuff. We know what the problem is. It's well defined by now. What is the solution? We know the LNP LNP tried to move something in state politics today. What do you think is the solution to the sugar problem?
Well, what the LNP have done is a good, quick measure to make Wilmar stand up and pay attention, and hopefully by the end of this week or maybe next week get a deal done with QSL, Queensland Sugar Limited, which will enable farmers to start using Queensland Sugar Limited as their marketer. It's all intricate and complex, but to really dumb this down, what farmers need is a rule book and an umpire for when they go into negotiations with their monopoly miller again. They are not simply put over a barrel and forced to accept whatever's put in front of them, or having to run off to politicians to try and get a different outcome. If we had a code of conduct, and that's what I firmly believe needs to happen, and we had the ACCC overseeing that and issuing fines if people are in breach of that code of conduct, that would be the rule book and the umpire in place.
Today we saw a scenario in Young in southwestern New South Wales about somebody who was essentially, and look, we don't want to get too far into it because there is a charge involved, but somebody trying to help Islamic State with some material support. But radicalisation is something that very few people really want to talk about. They only want to talk about de-radicalisation. All they want to talk about is look the other way. They only want to talk about the extreme minority and all the rest of it here. In many ways, the system worked today because the AFP was watching this bloke for 18 months. But where do you think the system is not working that means someone in a country town jumps onto the internet and follows that rabbit hole into a scenario where they're potentially designing weaponry for Islamic State?
Yeah, well, look, once they're online and doing stuff that's untoward, I mean, it'll eventually get red flagged by our security services, so thank goodness for that. But things do go, missing here in terms of things that are untoward, things which might be bordering on terrorist activity, and they just go missing. I'll tell you an incident from, I mean, we talk about Alecki from Young, a surgeon from Mackay, actually, who was considered, he was Muslim, but he was considered to be very liberal, went out drinking with his workmates, was considered a bit of a ladies' man when he was at university and even in the hospital. And then in one weekend apparently got radicalised. Next thing, he's over with ISIS, acting as one of their surgeons over there. I mean, how does this happen? How did people not see that pathway being created? So I'm not sure what we do, but obviously people aren't speaking up who know what's going on. Someone knew that guy. Someone would have seen the changes in him. Someone would have noticed, the ramblings that he had to say or things that he was doing that were untoward, but they didn't report it.
I also think there's plenty of danger too when groups like Uzbek Tahrir literally are on Facebook. If you put up literally a classic work of art that shows a backside or a pair of breasts, that'll get bounced off. But Uzbek Tahrir, who believe in a caliphate, they still get to have a Facebook page with 20,000 people on it. If you want to watch an American TV show in Australia, it gets geo-blocked. But if you want to watch some crazy preacher from London, you can still do that via YouTube. Do we have to do something, not about censoring the internet, but about using the same things that mean we restrict certain types of content? Can't we do that for the internet in Australia and radicalisation?
Yeah, well, look, I think that we can. There is the question of, how far we go with our security services and security in sort of overriding freedom. And sorry, Paul, but my earpiece keeps on popping out here.
Sorry, mate.
Fix it up for a second, mate.
It's one of those slippery lefties. Yeah. One of those slippery lefties who're just full of oil, mate. That's why it's slipping out of a good man's ear.
I got it back in. She's fine. We're away. There's obviously a fine line between security and impinging upon people's freedom, and we've got to be careful of that. But sure, I think that there are more things that we can be doing at the moment. We should be, demanding really that, demanding might be a strong word, but demanding that our loyal Muslim community here in Australia actually do step up and do start reporting things that they see in their midst that are just not right. We need the support of those people, to be able to weed out elements that are harmful to this nation and, quite frankly, harmful to Muslim Australians as well.
Agree completely. George Christensen, thank you so much. You know we're bringing our show on the road. I look forward to bringing it to your part of Australia very soon, and I look forward to seeing you.
Paul.
We will,
hope
mate.
You come to Bowen.
Don't worry. We will organise it, and I want you to be there, mate. Looking forward to it.
Great.
See you later.
Thanks for that.
George Christensen there, joining us from Canberra. Now let's have a chat with the